Captain Marcus Reed stared out the viewport of his ship as they approached the massive space station, orbiting Axiom Prime. The Federation capital world glowed blue and green below, surrounded by hundreds of ships from dozens of different alien species. It had been 50 years since humanity first made contact with the Galactic Federation, and Reed still felt like an outsider every time he visited. The Federation had welcomed humanity with open arms, they said. They offered technology, knowledge, and protection from the dangers of space. All humanity had to do was follow a few simple rules. No weapons beyond basic defense systems. No expansion beyond their home solar system without permission. No military forces that could threaten the peace the Federation had maintained for thousands of years. Most humans accepted these terms gladly. After centuries of war on Earth, the promise of eternal peace seemed worth any price. Always felt uncomfortable with how quickly his people had given up their independence. Now, as he guided his diplomatic transport toward the docking bay, that feeling was stronger than ever. "Captain, we're receiving clearance for Bay 7, announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Davis. "The Federation Council is expecting us in 2 hours." Reed nodded, but kept his eyes on the alien ships surrounding them. Massive vessels from the warrior species of Theta Centauri floated alongside sleek trading ships from the vegan merchant clans. All of them carried weapons that could destroy his ship in seconds. All of them were allowed technologies that humans were forbidden to possess. Sir. Something strange happened during our approach," Davis said quietly. "I picked up an encrypted transmission. It wasn't meant for us, but our systems decoded part of it automatically." Reed turned to face his officer. Davis looked nervous, which was unusual for the veteran communications specialist. "What kind of transmission?" "It mentioned something called Operation Silence. It specifically mentioned Earth." Davis paused. "Sir, I think we should be careful." During this visit, the docking procedure went smoothly, as it always did. Federation technology made everything simple and efficient. Reed and his small diplomatic team were escorted through the gleaming corridors of the station by a tall, blue-skinned Altarian guide. Everything looked normal, peaceful, and prosperous, but Reed noticed things. Security checkpoints that hadn't been there on his last visit. Armed guards from species he didn't recognize. Whispered conversations that stopped when humans walked by. The Federation seemed more tense than usual, though he couldn't understand why. The diplomatic meeting was routine. The Federation Council listened politely as Reed delivered Earth's quarterly report on colonial development and trade statistics. They asked their usual questions about human compliance with Federation regulations. They expressed their usual satisfaction with humanity's peaceful progress. But as the meeting ended, Reed overheard something that made his blood run cold. To council members, speaking in what they thought was a private moment, mentioned the Dominion. Reed had heard that name before in classified briefings. The Dominion was supposed to be an ancient enemy of the Federation, a ruthless empire that had been destroyed centuries ago. The Dominion advanced scouts reported successful infiltration of the human colonies, one of the aliens said. Phase 2 can begin within the month. Reed forced himself to walk calmly away, but his mind was racing. The Dominion wasn't extinct. They were working with the Federation. And they were talking about human colonies as if they were targets. Evening, Reed made an excuse to explore the station alone. His diplomatic status gave him access to most areas, and he used that freedom to investigate. What he found in the restricted sections of the station changed everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the galaxy, hidden behind layers of security. Reed discovered a conference room where Federation leaders were meeting with beings he had never seen before. Dark, angular creatures with red eyes and voices like grinding metal. The Dominion, alive and plotting with humanity's supposed protectors. Reed activated his personal recorder and listened in horror as the truth was revealed. The Federation had never intended to protect humanity. From the moment of first contact, they had been preparing for humanity's destruction. The peace treaties, the technology restrictions, limits on expansion, all of it had been designed to keep humans weak and defenseless. The human colonies are producing excellent test results, one of the Dominion leaders was saying. The new biological weapons show promise, and their defensive capabilities remain minimal as planned. Excellent, replied a Federation council. Remember? How long before full implementation? Our forces are already in position. The final assault can begin whenever the Federation gives the order. The humans will never know what hit them. Reed felt sick. The recent disasters on human colonies hadn't been accidents or natural catastrophes. They had been attacks, tests, preparations for something much worse. His own people were being used as laboratory animals, and their government didn't even know it. Remember, the Federation leader continued. It must appear that the Dominion discovered and attacked humanity independently. The Federation's reputation for protecting developing species must remain intact, of course. Your other species must never suspect that you orchestrate these convenient extinctions. Reed had heard enough. He carefully made his way back through the station, his mind working furiously. He had to get this information back to Earth, but he couldn't use normal communication channels. The Federation monitored all human transmissions. The next morning, Reed filed his routine departure request and prepared to leave Axiom Prime. But as his ship undocked, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Someone had discovered his infiltration. Federation security ships moved to intercept his vessel. "Captain, we're being targeted," Davis reported. "Multiple ships closing fast. All power to engines," Reed ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump." The Federation ships opened fire just as Reed's vessel entered hyperspace. The ship shook violently as energy beams grazed their hull, but they escaped into the safety of faster-than-light travel. "Where are we headed, sir?" asked his navigator. Reed pulled up a star chart showing the asteroid belt beyond Mars. There were rumors, whispers really, of humans who had refused to accept Federation limitations. People who had disappeared into the outer system, building something in secret. Reed had never believed those stories before, but now they were his only hope. "Set course for the belt," he said. "There's someone we need to find." As his damaged ship limped toward home, Reed stared at the recorded evidence of the Federation's betrayal. Humanity had remained silent for 50 years, accepting alien rule in exchange for false promises of peace. But silence would not save them from what was coming. The war for human survival was about to begin, whether they were ready or not. The asteroid looked like thousands of others floating in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Its surface was scarred by ancient impacts, covered in the gray dust of countless meteor strikes. But as Reed's damaged ship approached, hidden sensors scanned them, and concealed weapons tracked their movement. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," came a voice over the communications channel. The accent was human, but the tone was military and hard. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the diplomatic vessel Defiant. I carry urgent intelligence about Federation activities. I need to speak with Admiral Torres." There was a long pause. Reed wondered if he had made a mistake. The stories about Torres were whispers and rumors, tales of a former Federation officer who had vanished 5 years ago. Some said she was dead. Others claimed she was building a secret resistance in the outer system. "Follow the navigation beacon, Captain. Any deviation from the flight path will result in your destruction." The asteroid's surface began to open, revealing a massive hangar bay hidden beneath false rock plating. As Reed's ship descended into the facility, he saw something that took his breath away. Dozens of ships filled the hangar, but these weren't the peaceful vessels that humanity was allowed to build. These were warships, sleek and deadly. Armed with weapons that violated every Federation treaty, Admiral Lisa Torres was waiting for them on the landing platform. She was smaller than Reed had expected, but her eyes held the hard gleam of someone who had seen too much and decided to fight back. Around her stood men and women in military uniforms that bore no Federation insignia. Captain Reed, Torres said. "As he disembarked, I've been expecting you for a long time, Admiral. I have evidence that the Federation is planning to destroy humanity. They're working with the Dominion." Torres smiled grimly. "I know. I've known for years. The question is, what are you prepared to do about it?" Torres led Reed through the hidden base, revealing the scope of the resistance operation. The asteroid was hollow, carved out by mining equipment and converted into a massive military facility. Factories produced weapons and armor, Shipyards constructed vessels designed for war. Training centers prepared soldiers for battles that the Federation thought would never come. "We've been monitoring Federation communications for 5 years," Torres explained as they walked. "We know about Operation Silence. We know about the Dominion Alliance. We know about the biological weapons tests on our colonies." "How many people know the truth?" "Here, about 3,000. Scattered across the system, maybe 10,000 more. We've been recruiting quietly, carefully. Former military officers who couldn't stomach the Federation's restrictions, scientists who wanted to push human technology beyond alien limitations, colonists who survived the natural disasters and started asking questions. They entered a command center where screens displayed information from across human space. Reed saw deployment charts, weapon specifications, and intelligence reports that painted a picture of humanity's true situation. "The Federation has been playing a long game," Torres continued. "They identify species with potential for rapid advancement, then offer them protection and technology. But it's all designed to create dependency and prevent military development. When the species becomes too advanced or too numerous, they arrange for the Dominion to discover and destroy them. How many species have they eliminated this way? 17 that we know of. Entire civilizations wiped out by their supposed protectors." Torres pulled up a holographic display showing the galactic map. "Look at the pattern. Every 52,100 years, a promising species just disappears. The Federation expresses regret, increases security, and continues the cycle." Reed studied the display, seeing the truth in the data. "And humanity is next. We estimate 6 months before the final assault begins. The Dominion has been positioning fleets throughout human space, disguised as merchant vessels and trading posts. When they attack, it will be simultaneous and overwhelming. What can we do? The Federation has monitored human military development for decades. They know exactly what we're capable of." Dora smiled, and for the first time Reed saw hope in her expression. "They know what we've shown them. They don't know what we've been building in secret." She led him to an observation deck overlooking the main hangar. Below them, Reed saw ships unlike anything in the Federation fleet. Human engineering had been pushed beyond alien expectations, creating vessels that combined raw power with innovative design. "We call them Valkyries," Torres said, indicating the sleek fighters. "They use human fusion technology enhanced with captured Federation systems. They're faster than anything the Dominion has, and their weapons can punch through alien armor like paper." "Where did you get Federation technology?" "It's the same place we got intelligence about their plans." "Not everyone in the Federation supports the genocide policy. Some species remember what it was like before the Federation existed, when they had to fight for their survival. They've been helping us secretly, providing technology and information." Reed watched as maintenance crews worked on the war machines. "Is it enough? Alone?" "No, but we're not fighting alone. We've made contact with other species that the Federation has targeted. The Altarians have been providing intelligence for years. The Procyon colonies have been developing their own hidden weapons. The Regalian trade unions have been stockpiling resources for us." Torres activated a secure communication channel. Images appeared on the screens around them, showing similar hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Humans weren't the only species preparing for war. "The Federation made a mistake," Torres said. "They assumed that threatened species would never communicate with each other. They never considered that their victims might unite against them. What's the plan?" "Operation Prometheus. We're going to give humanity fire." Torres pulled up tactical displays showing Federation and Dominion positions throughout the galaxy. "But first, we need to convince our own people that war is necessary. 50 years of peace has made them soft. They need to see the Federation as the enemy. How do we do that? By showing them what their protectors really are. We're going to stage a series of raids on Federation outposts, making them look like Dominion attacks. When humanity sees their Federation friends being slaughtered by ancient enemies, they'll demand protection. We'll be ready to provide it." Reed felt uncomfortable with the deception, but he understood the necessity. About Earth's government? They'll never authorize military action against the Federation. They won't have to. By the time the truth comes out, the war will already be decided. Torres turned to face him directly. I'm offering you a choice, Captain. You can return to Earth and report that your mission was successful. Continue playing the Federation's game until they decide to end it. Or you can join us and help save humanity. Reed thought about the evidence he had gathered, the conversations he had overheard, the future that awaited his species if nothing changed. What do you need me to do? Take command of the Defiant Squadron. 12 ships, all volunteers, all equipped with our new technology. Your job will be to hit Federation targets and make it look like Dominion work. Can you do that? I can do that, Torres nodded. Welcome to the Resistance, Captain. Let's go wake up humanity. As Reed looked out at the hidden fleet, he realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. For 50 years, humanity had been silent, accepting alien rule and limitations. But silence was about to end. The storm was gathering, and humanity was about to learn how to fight back. The attack on New Geneva came at dawn, just as the Dominion commanders had planned. Their massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace above the human colony, expecting to find a defenseless world protected only by a few patrol ships and orbital platforms. The planet below housed 2 million humans, farmers and miners who had never seen real combat. Admiral Vex, Dominion fleet commander, smiled as his sensors showed the pitiful human defenses. 3 old escort ships and a handful of defense satellites. The Federation had done its job well, keeping the humans weak and helpless. Begin the bombardment, Vex ordered. Destroy the orbital defenses first, then move to ground targets. Make it quick and clean. The Dominion warships moved into attack formation, their weapons charging for the killing blow. But as they approached the planet, something unexpected happened. The space around New Geneva began to shimmer. And suddenly, the sky was full of human ships. They weren't the weak patrol vessels the Dominion had expected. These were warships, sleek and deadly, emerging from hidden positions behind the planets, moons and asteroid fields. The Valkyrie fighters that Torres had shown Red were there, along with larger vessels that looked like nothing in the Federation database. What is this? Dex demanded as his sensors struggled to identify the new ships. Where did they come from? His answer came in the form of energy beams that cut through his flagship's shields like they were made of paper. The human weapons were unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. They punched through alien armor and overloaded power systems with devastating efficiency. Captain Reed, now commanding the Resistance fleet from his upgraded ship, watched the Dominion formation break. Apart under the unexpected assault, all ships target their command vessels. Don't let them coordinate their defense. The Battle of New Geneva lasted only 3 hours. When it ended, half the Dominion fleet was destroyed, and the rest was fleeing toward the edge of the system. Not a single human ship had been lost, and the colony below was untouched. But the victory came with a price. Among the wreckage of the Dominion command ship, Reed's boarding teams found evidence that changed everything. Databanks full of communications between Dominion leaders and Federation Council members, detailed plans for the systematic destruction of human colonies, orders signed by the highest levels of the galactic government. Send this to every news network in human space, Reed ordered, and make sure copies reach the other Federation species. They need to see what their government has been doing. The evidence spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had trusted the Federation for centuries suddenly saw their protectors as genocidal monsters. The Altarians, who had been secretly helping the human resistance, openly declared their support for humanity. The Kalani warrior clans, impressed by human tactical skills, offered military alliance. On Earth, the revelation caused chaos. The government that had worked with the Federation for 50 years was suddenly faced with proof of their allies' betrayal. Peaceful protests turned into angry demonstrations. Colonial governors who had enforced Federation restrictions found themselves removed from office by their own people. Humans have revealed our plans, reported a nervous Federation Council member during an emergency session on Axiom Prime. Several member species are demanding explanations. Some are threatening to leave the Alliance. The Federation Chancellor, an ancient being from the core worlds, listened to the reports with growing alarm. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that human military capability was minimal. They have been hiding their true strength for years. The weapons they used at New Geneva are decades ahead of our estimates. And they're not fighting alone. At least 6 other species are providing them with support. The Chancellor's compound eyes fixed on the battle reports. Then we accelerate the timeline. Order the Dominion to begin full-scale operations immediately. Every human world must be attacked simultaneously. If we cannot hide our intentions, we will complete them before resistance can organize. But the human resistance was already ahead of them. Torres had spent years preparing for this moment, and her network of hidden bases and allied species was ready. As Dominion fleets moved to attack human colonies, they found themselves facing coordinated defense forces that had been waiting for them. The Battle of Kepler Station became legendary throughout the galaxy. A massive Dominion fleet expecting to destroy a mining outpost. Instead, encountered Admiral Torres herself, commanding a combined force of human, Altarian, and Kalani ships. The battle lasted 2 days and ended with the complete destruction of the Dominion force. Reed, monitoring the battle from his position near Earth, watched as Torres broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. I am Admiral Lisa Torres of the Human Liberation Fleet. For 50 years, the Galactic Federation has lied to us. They promised protection while planning our destruction. They offered peace while preparing for our genocide. They demanded our silence while plotting our extinction. The transmission reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. Humans who had lived their entire lives under Federation rule finally understood the truth. But more importantly, other species heard it too. The carefully maintained image of Federation benevolence was crumbling. Humanity was silent for half a century, Torres continued. We accepted limitations on our technology, our expansion, our military capability. We trusted in alien promises of peace and protection. But silence has not saved us. Peace has not protected us. The Federation planned our destruction from the moment they found us. Reports were coming in from across human space. Dominion fleets were being destroyed at every target. Human colonies that had appeared defenseless were revealing hidden weapon systems and defense fleets. The species that the Federation had thought was helpless was fighting back with devastating effectiveness. But we are silent no more, Torres said. We roar with the voice of the betrayed, the anger of the deceived, and the fury of the condemned. We roar with vengeance for every lie told, every restriction imposed, every plan made for our destruction. The Federation's carefully planned genocide was falling apart. Instead of weak victims, they had created an enemy that had been preparing for this war for years. Worse, that enemy was not fighting alone. The Federation's own member species were turning against them, horrified by the revelation of their government's true nature. On Axiom Prime, emergency sessions continued around the clock. The Federation was facing the collapse of everything they had built over thousands of years. Species were leaving the Alliance, forming new pacts with humanity in each other. The galactic order that had maintained peace was crumbling. We must negotiate, one council member suggested. Perhaps we can reach an agreement with the humans. The Chancellor's response was cold. There will be no negotiation. We cannot control the humans. We will destroy them. Order all remaining forces to converge on the Sol system. We will end this rebellion at its source. But as the Federation's final gambit began, Reed received a message that changed everything. The transmission came from deep in Dominion space, from a source that should have been impossible. Captain Reed, this is Dr. Nathan Cross, formerly of the Earth Colonial Research Division. I have been a prisoner of the Dominion for 3 years. I have critical information about their true capabilities and weaknesses. The Federation has been hiding something from the Dominion, something that could change the entire war, Reed studied. The transmission data. If Cross was telling the truth, then the Federation's betrayal was even deeper than they had imagined. The aliens hadn't just been planning humanity's destruction, they had been planning to betray their Dominion allies as well. All ships, prepare for Phase 2 operations, Reed ordered. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to expose the truth about what the Federation really is. As human fleets moved toward their next targets, the galaxy held its breath. The species that had been silent for 50 years was now roaring with a voice that could not be ignored. Their roar was only getting louder. The Federation High Command bunker on Axiom Prime was built to survive anything. Its walls were made of the strongest materials in the galaxy. Its shields could stop planet-killing weapons. And its location deep underground was supposed to be secret. But as Admiral Torres watched the final assault begin, she knew that all of those defenses were about to be tested. Target their orbital defense platforms first, Torres ordered from the bridge of her flagship, the Prometheus. Around her, a massive fleet of human and allied ships moved into attack formation above the Federation capital world. I want every gun battery offline before we begin the ground assault. The siege of Axiom Prime had been 3 months in the making. Since the truth about the Federation's plans had been revealed, human forces had systematically destroyed alien military installations across the galaxy. World after world had fallen to the advancing human fleets, and now they had reached the heart of the Federation itself. Captain Reed, commanding the assault on the planet's southern hemisphere, watched as human weapons tore through defenses that had protected the Federation for thousands of years. The orbital platforms that had once seemed invincible were burning wreckage within hours. The supposedly impregnable shields that surrounded the capital city flickered and died under concentrated bombardment. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from multiple Federation worlds," reported Lieutenant Davis from the communications station. "The vegan merchant clans are offering to provide supplies and intelligence. The Centauri Defense Forces are requesting terms for switching sides." Reed wasn't surprised. The Federation had ruled through fear and manipulation for centuries. But when their true nature was exposed, their support had crumbled rapidly. Species that had lived under alien control for generations were eager to join the human cause. But not everyone was ready to surrender. Deep in the bunker beneath Axiom Prime, the Federation Chancellor and his remaining loyal supporters were making their final plans. The ancient alien had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed, and he was not prepared to accept defeat. "Activate the Omega Protocol," the Chancellor ordered, his multiple eyes fixed on the tactical displays showing human ships in orbit above them. "If we cannot maintain control, then let the galaxy burn." His subordinates hesitated. The Omega Protocol was a weapon of last resort designed to destroy entire star systems. Using it would kill billions of innocent beings across the galaxy, including their own people. "Sir, the Omega stations were built to stop invasion fleets, not to commit genocide," one of them said. "If we activate them, we'll be no better than the Dominion." The Chancellor's laugh was cold and bitter. "We are already no better than the Dominion. We created them, trained them, used them to eliminate our enemies for centuries. The only difference is that we were more subtle about it." Above ground, human forces were advancing through the capital city. The alien civilians had mostly fled or surrendered, but pockets of Federation military forces continued to resist. Reed led his ground troops through the elegant streets that had once hosted diplomatic ceremonies, now scarred by weapons fire and burning vehicles. "The bunker entrance is 2 kilometers ahead," Reed reported to Torres over the secure channel. "Heavy resistance around the government district, but we're pushing through." "Be careful down there," Torres replied. "Intelligence suggests they have some kind of final weapon. Don't give them time to use it." Reed's team moved quickly through the city, using human tactical advantages to outmaneuver the defending aliens. The Federation had grown soft during their centuries of dominance, relying on technology rather than skill. Human soldiers, trained for real combat rather than police actions, proved superior in every engagement. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the revelation of the Omega Protocol had changed everything. Dr. Kraus, the human prisoner who had escaped from Dominion territory, had brought more than just intelligence about alien military capabilities. He had brought proof that the Federation had built weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems, and that they were prepared to use them rather than accept defeat. "The Omega stations are hidden throughout Federation space," Cross explained during a secure briefing with human command staff. Each one is designed to destabilize the local star, causing it to go supernova. They've been there for centuries. Insurance against any species that might threaten Federation control. The news spread quickly through the Allied forces. Species that had been considering surrender to the humans suddenly realized that their own worlds were under threat. The Federation wasn't just planning to destroy humanity. They were planning to take the entire galaxy down with them. This revelation brought new allies to the human cause. The warrior clans of Rigel, who had remained neutral throughout the conflict, suddenly offered their entire fleet to help disable the Omega stations. The peaceful Altarians, who had been providing intelligence, began actively attacking Federation targets to prevent the Doomsday weapons from being activated. Back on Axiom Prime, Reed's forces finally breached the bunker entrance. The fighting was intense but brief. Federation guards, trained for ceremonial duties rather than real combat, were no match for human soldiers who had been preparing for this war for years. "Chancellor, you're surrounded," Reed announced as his team entered the command center. "Order, your forces to surrender, and we can discuss terms." The ancient alien looked up from his control console with eyes that held no fear, only bitter resignation. "Terms? What terms can there be between conqueror and conquered? Do you have one human? Take your victory." "We don't want conquest," Reed said, though he kept his weapon ready. "We want justice. And we want assurance that this will never happen again." The Chancellor laughed. "Justice? You speak of justice after burning half the galaxy? After destroying civilizations that had existed for millennia before your species learned to make fire?" "Those civilizations supported genocide," Reed replied. "They knew what you were doing to developing species, and they allowed it to continue. They share responsibility for your crimes." "And what of your crimes? How many innocents died in your crusade for revenge?" Reed thought of the battles they had fought, the worlds they had conquered, the alien soldiers who had died defending their homes. The human victory had not been bloodless, but it had been necessary. "Fewer than would have died if we had remained silent," he said finally. The Chancellor reached toward his control console, but Reed was faster. The shot that ended the Federation leader's life also ended an era of galactic history that had lasted for thousands of years. "Torres, this is Reed. The bunker is secure. Chancellor is dead, and we have control of the Omega Station network." "Understood. Begin shutdown procedures immediately. Can't risk any automated activation." As human technicians worked to disable the Doomsday weapons, Reed stood in the ruins of the Federation Command Center and thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been a minor species, restricted and controlled by alien overseers. Now they were the dominant power in the galaxy, and other species looked to them for leadership. The transformation had come at a terrible cost, but it had been necessary. Humanity's silence had nearly led to their extinction. Their roar of vengeance had saved not just themselves, but countless other species who had lived under Federation oppression. The war was not quite over. Dominion forces were still fighting in several sectors, and some Federation loyalists continued to resist. Outcome was no longer in doubt. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and they would decide what came next. The Dominion homeworld of Keth Prime had never been attacked in its 3,000-year history. The dark planet, orbiting a dying red star, was protected by massive defense fleets and orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire armadas. Its people had conquered dozens of species and crushed countless rebellions. Always confident that their homeworld remained safe from retaliation, Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as the human fleet approached the Dominion capital. Around her, ships from 20 different species moved in perfect formation. The alliance that had begun with humanity's roar of vengeance had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history, a true coalition of free peoples working together. "Final surrender demand is being transmitted," reported her communications officer. "The Dominion High Command has 30 minutes to respond before we begin the assault." Torres nodded, but she didn't expect a surrender.
Oh.
The Dominion leadership had orchestrated the attempted genocide of humanity and dozens of other species. They had worked with the Federation to maintain a system of oppression that had lasted for millennia. They would fight to the end rather than face justice for their crimes. The response came exactly as expected. Instead of words, the Dominion answered with weapons. Every gun battery on the planet opened fire simultaneously, sending streams of energy into space toward the Allied fleet. Orbital platforms launched missiles by the thousands, creating a wall of destruction that should have shattered any attacking force. But the Allied ships were ready. Human shield technology enhanced with innovations from their new partners absorbed the bombardment without serious damage. The fleet moved forward, inexorably closing the distance to the planet below. All ships, begin orbital bombardment, Torres ordered. Target military installations only. Civilian areas are off limits. The irony was not lost on her. The Dominion had planned to exterminate humanity completely, showing no mercy to soldiers or civilians. But the human-led alliance would not repeat their enemies' crimes. This would be justice, not genocide, Captain Reed, commanding ground forces aboard one of the troop transports, watched as the planet's defenses crumbled under the Allied assault. The Dominion military, so effective at attacking defenseless colonies, proved unable to defend their own world against an organized enemy. Resistance is collapsing across all sectors, Reed reported. Their ground forces are surrendering faster than we can process them. It seems like most of their soldiers don't actually want to die for their leaders. That was another lesson the galaxy had learned during the war. When people fought for freedom and justice, they were willing to sacrifice everything. Fought to maintain oppression and injustice, their commitment was much weaker. The final battle took place in the Dominion capital city. In the massive pyramid that had served as their seat of power for centuries, Reed led the assault personally, determined to face the beings who had planned his species' extinction. The Dominion High Command was waiting in their throne room. A dozen tall, dark figures who had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Their leader, Supreme Commander Vorth, stood at the center of the group, his red eyes blazing with hatred. "So the prey has become the predator," Vorth said as human soldiers surrounded him. "How the galaxy has fallen, when primitive apes can defeat their betters." "We're not here for your insults," Reed replied. "We're here for your surrender. The war is over. Your forces are defeated, your allies are dead, and your empire is finished." "Our empire was eternal," another Dominion leader snarled. "We ruled this galaxy when your species was still crawling in caves. We will rule it again when you are dust." Reed studied the aliens who had caused so much suffering. Even in defeat, they showed no remorse, no understanding of what they had done wrong. They saw other species as prey to be hunted, resources to be consumed, obstacles to be eliminated. "Your empire is over," Reed said simply. "Right. The question is, what happens to your people? That depends on whether you're willing to accept responsibility for your crimes." The Supreme Commander's laugh was harsh and bitter. "Responsibility? We are Dominion. We take what we want and destroy what opposes us. That is our nature."
Would yes, a storm?
"To take responsibility for the trees it breaks. A storm doesn't choose its actions. You did." The negotiations that followed were brief and one-sided. The Dominion leadership refused to acknowledge that they had done anything wrong, insisting that the attempted genocide of humanity was simply the natural order of the galaxy. Stronger species dominated weaker ones. That was how things had always been. But the galaxy had changed. The human-led alliance represented a new way of thinking, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Species could work together as equals rather than rulers and subjects. The old order of conquest and oppression was ending. The final terms were harsh but fair. The Dominion military was completely disbanded. Their weapons were destroyed or given to Alliance forces. Their homeworld and colonies were placed under occupation. Human and allied administrators working to establish new governments based on justice rather than oppression. Most importantly, the Dominion people themselves were relocated to a single star system, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. They would be provided with everything they needed to survive and prosper, but they would never again have the opportunity to threaten other species. "It's more mercy than they would have shown us," Torres said as she signed the final documents. "But mercy is what separates us from them." With the Dominion defeated and the Federation dissolved, the galaxy needed new leadership. The various species that had joined the human alliance were eager to establish formal relationships, but they wanted humanity to take the leading role. Could rule the entire galaxy, the Altarian ambassador told Reed during the peace negotiations. On New Geneva, every species respects your military power and your commitment to justice. They would accept human leadership willingly. Reed looked out at the rebuilt colony, where human and alien workers were cooperating to repair the damage. From the war's first battle, we didn't fight this war to become rulers, he said. We fought it to be free. The new galactic government that emerged was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of a single dominant species controlling others, it was a true alliance. Of equals, each member species retained control of their own worlds and systems, but they worked together on matters of mutual interest. Humanity's role was special, but not dominant. They provided military protection and technological innovation, while other species contributed their own unique strengths. The Altarians handled trade and diplomacy. The colony provided warrior training and security. The Regilians managed scientific research and exploration. 5 years after the war's end, Reed stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Liberty, watching over a galaxy that had been transformed beyond recognition. Worlds that had been oppressed under Federation rule were now free and prosperous. Species that had lived in fear of Dominion raids were exploring and expanding without restriction. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim, his communications officer reported. A new species has been discovered, and they're under attack by unknown hostiles. Reed smiled as he gave the order that would have been impossible under the old galactic order. Set course to intercept. Ships prepare for a humanitarian mission. We have people to protect. The human fleet moved toward the crisis, not as conquerors or rulers, but as protectors. They had learned the hard way that silence in the face of injustice only enabled greater evils. They had roared with vengeance when their own survival was threatened, and that roar had awakened the galaxy to new possibilities. Now they used their voice not for revenge, for justice. Not for conquest, but for protection. The species that had once been forced into silence now spoke for all those who could not speak for themselves. As the Liberty entered hyperspace, Reed reflected on how far humanity had come. They had been silent when silence seemed safe, but they had roared when roaring became necessary. And in their roar, the galaxy had found a new voice, one that spoke not of domination and fear, but of freedom and hope. The age of oppression was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity, once the victims, had become the guardians of that new age,